I would say just one of the basic boxes. Lego does sell, like, I guess, starter kits. Just be a box with multicolored bricks and wheels and all sorts of funny pieces. It doesn't build anything specific, but definitely just put that down in front of kids and let them start building things, let them be creative. And then for the STEM aspect of it, Lego has done their Mindstorms and there's a whole Lego robotics league. My son does Robot League, and one of the sub leagues actually builds their robots out of Lego, and they get coding help and module help. It's like a stepping stone between the real advanced engineering of an actual robotics team. And my son's got girls and boys on his robotics team, and they all participate and build and have a great time doing it. And I know some of them started with Lego League.
I'm Kandas Rodarte. This is Gratitude Geek, and today's topic is Lego. Saw a commercial on YouTube, and it was for this new Lego She Built That. So it's a song by Run DMC from the 80s. This ad is definitely targeted grandparents who have grandkids, and the grandparents were, teenagers during the 80s. Is definitely targeted at my generation of grandparents, even though I'm not old enough to be a grandparent. So there's a lot of breakdancing in the video, but it's about girls using Lego and creating things with Lego. She built that. And I was like, this is a brilliant marketing concept. And I know that it's targeting the girly kind of Lego sets, but I was like, Lego is the reason why my sisters and I have excellent problem-solving skills. We always play with Lego. When we were kids, we had these huge wooden boxes. They were ginormous wooden boxes filled with Lego parts. And we would we would play with them every day. We got them when we lived in Germany. They were just the kind of Legos that you could only use to make houses. We made houses and stuff. We might have had some wheels, but mostly it was building houses. But we learned how to problem solve by playing with these Lego. And I think that targeting girls and getting them building with Lego is a great way to move them into STEM. And so I activated my network and I said, I need someone to talk to me about this new Lego ad. And my friend Heather Vickery said, I know the dude for you. And that is how we get to our guest today. So Eric Archer is a history teacher. He teaches middle school history. He is a lifelong builder whose family has turned Lego into multi-generational passion. I can't wait to talk to him. He goes to Lego conventions, and he has a Lego TikTok and a Lego YouTube channel. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Did I miss any details there?
Oh, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good start. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so I got some rapid fire questions for you just to warm you up. What is your favorite Lego set that you've ever built?
My favorite Lego set I ever built is one of the big ones, the UCS Millennium Falcon. It is enormous. It's over here. You can't really see it, but it's off on my table of Millennium Falcons because I'm a lifelong Star Wars fan. So that was a big conversation. That was a conversation I had with my wife.
Getting the Millennium Falcon?
Yep.
Because I've seen it. It's huge.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is your go-to snack when you're deep in a building session? What are you snacking on?
Ooh, M&Ms usually, if anything. Yeah, I like plain M&Ms.
It's a good snack that doesn't get your fingers dirty.
Yeah, you can't have chips.
Yeah, they get in those little cracks between the little circles.
Yeah, not ideal.
Who's the better builder in your family, you or your kids?
My kids don't build their own creations all that often. My sons started to get more into it, but I'm the creative builder. Most of the rest of my family, they like to build sets. They build a lot of sets. So I guess if you're looking for the creative side.
I think that is the one downside to these sets, because I just had 2 big boxes of bricks, right? That's what my sisters didn't have. We didn't have instructions. We just had these little flat boards that had little circles in them, and then we'd build our houses on these little flat boards, right? And then they started making these sets where you follow instructions, which is following instructions is great. But I think that the creativity part of it is lacking when you know what you're going to get at the end.
Yeah, well, I grew up with the space Lego sets, and we'd put them all. I'd build the set and play with it for a while, then you'd put it all in a bin and build something else, and just endless iterations of that. And the sets these days, my son was happy to keep them together and play with them because they were all the Star Wars ships. So I grew up building different things with them constantly. So that was kind of my skill set. So it's a little different way to play with Lego today, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, last question. So TikTok or YouTube, which platform do you enjoy creating on more?
I got into TikTok. I really haven't dive too deeply into YouTube yet. TikTok was an easy interface. I had a nephew who was on it and said, Uncle Eric, you should get on this new TikTok thing. So I started doing Lego stuff there, and I had a few thousand followers. And then I made a teaching video about teaching difficult history, and I went from 3,000 to about 15,000 followers in about a month and a half. So that was kind of crazy. I tend to create more on TikTok, but who knows what's going to happen with that anytime soon. So I've started to hedge my bets a little bit, we'll say.
Yeah, the thing about YouTube is that it's in there for the long haul.
Hmm.
TikTok and platforms like that, you just never know. Although going from 3,000 to 15,000 on any platform is amazing. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so you have Lego in your classroom and you
Hmm.
teach using Lego. What does it look like?
I can't say as I teach a lot using Lego, but we have an advisory period. About 4 days a week before school, and I have a huge bin of Lego that I keep in my room, and on Fridays, I get it out for the, I have about 15 or 20 kids in that advisory group. There's a Lego club at school that kids meet after school to build. Before breaks, if we have some extra time, a lot of times I'll get that bin out. I have some sets just in my room randomly set up. I have the Everyone is Awesome set just because I think it's good and visible to be there. And I have a Lego sign like this one behind my head actually in my classroom. So the kids are aware of my Lego love. So I can't say I get to use it too much in instruction.
Because I was wondering how history and Lego would go together, but I mean, there are historical. There's Vikings. I'm sure there's ways. I mean, you could build the Alamo out of Lego and teach the Alamo. I'm
I,
sure
I,
there's ways to do it.
I should bring my lunar lander in. I should bring my lunar lander in when we do the space program.
Oh yeah, yeah. I speaking of the space program, when I was a Girl Scout leader, I think the girls were they were old enough that we could take them out of school and be okay with it. So they might have been 12. The space shuttle, I cannot remember, Explorer, I don't know. It's one of the space shuttles that actually never went to space, was brought to Houston to go live at the Johnson Space Center. And so we piled all the girls into two vans and we took them down to watch the space shuttle arrive and and then get parked where it was going to be on display forever. But the mechanics of having to get it from the port that where it had landed with a ship to the actual space center required that they remove street lamps. So they had to.
Mm.
It took forever for it to get there because they kept taking the street lamps down, and they put the street lamps back up and move it a little bit further. But it was logistically, it was the same process as Lego, though. They had to figure out how to get from A to B using the pieces and the parts that they had, which is what you're doing with Lego. So talk about that.
When I build for conventions, first of all, I get imposter syndrome going to some of these conventions. The amount of time and effort that goes into the builds, and you can walk around the hall and just about anything you can think of, someone has put into Lego, including like gardening tools, scenes from I Love Lucy, a whole slew of fantasy and sci-fi themes going on, art pieces. Wet floor sign of all things was kind of a big hit. Uh, Dad jokes. This is not a drill, and it was a screwdriver, all done in Lego on a board. Just insanely clever things. And so that's kind of where I get into it is I want to try to see if I can build this. And, I have adult money now. So sometimes even if I don't have those parts at hand, I go find them. A lot of people I know use Studio or other programs to design in a computer what they're going to build, but I just pile bricks on top of each other. And when I get stuck, I take it apart, put it back together, try to figure it out. I use lighting in a lot of my builds, so that becomes an element of problem solving to get the wires hidden and run exactly to the right place. So that aspect of it, that construction, engineering, problem solving aspect of it is always a huge part of it. And sometimes it's just improvisation, just trying to make it work and just see what happens with it. Sometimes it doesn't look like we expect it to.
My mind was blown when you said a wet floor sign because I'm picturing this full size wet floor sign made out of bricks, and then you're talking about lights in your builds. You're actually putting electrical lights in your builds.
Yep.
This goes
Yep.
way beyond the little houses that my sisters and I made. Way
Yeah.
beyond.
Yep.
So talk to me about Brick World, which is, I'm assuming that this is something that happens in a lot of different locations. There's one coming up in Grand Rapids at the end of this month, so next week by the time this episode launches. But is Brick World something that happens everywhere? Is it kind of like a Comic-Con?
Brickworld is a company and it runs expos in the Midwest. The biggest one is Brickworld Chicago. It happens in early June every year, Father's Day weekend, usually. It is the largest Lego convention in North America, 100,000 square feet of exhibits and runs for 5 days. It is crazy. And then they have some smaller expositions around the area, Grand Rapids, Fort Wayne, a couple of them. They used to be Milwaukee, but I don't think they're doing that one this year. So 2 or 3 other expositions. Those are smaller shows, but kind of the same thing. The Chicago one's the big one. They get a bunch of the Lego Masters TV people to come, and there's actually panels about improving your builds, and it just turns into kind of a week-long party in a big room full of Lego creators.
There is a con for everything. You love it. There's a con for that. I think it's amazing. So let's talk about Lego and girls. Why do girls need to play with Lego?
I think it's just the creativity end of it, a gateway to those kind of skills that are maybe more traditionally male. I love it that my daughters, I've had 3 daughters. One really didn't get into Lego, but the other 2 did build quite a bit of Lego. My daughter's in her early 20s now. She's made me a grandfather, but she played with a lot of like the city Legos growing up. My daughter who's in college now, she liked the botanical. She had the friend sets when she was growing up, but she switched to like doing the plant themed things like that. It just it can be soothing. It can be just that creative, the act of creation can sometimes just be validating in itself. And, it does tend to be a male dominated environment, but I've met a lot of incredible women that are at these conventions building crazy stuff, and certainly a lot of younger ladies. There's always a dad and a daughter that are a team. I've seen a couple different ones of those. Just the branching out of it and the creativity end of it is so important.
I love that you call it being a builder. Because that it really is what you're doing with the bricks is you're building, and they're bricks. They're components to build. And so when you say that you're building with Lego, you are putting in it's the thoughts in your mind become the reality of your life, right? So if you're thinking like a builder, I'm a builder, I'm building this, then you're constantly in the mode of, oh, I can build that. And problem solving is problem solving. If you can figure out how to build the Millennium Falcon out of Lego, you can figure out how to build a house.
For the convention end of it, was talking to some people last time, it's not just about getting your build put together. It's actually physically bringing it to the convention. That is a logistical feat. Someone had a full-size Disney World, and you got to figure out how to get that into pieces and get it into the room and set it up. Not a life-size, but a full representation with all the different lands and everything. There was a 10-foot Lord of the Rings Tower of Ornithak I can't even fathom building that. And mine was about 8 feet wide and about 3 feet deep, and I had to make it in sections to make sure I could get it in. And I've been dumb about some of the things I've taken. I've taken big, huge chunks of brick that I had to carry in by hand because I wasn't smart enough the first couple of times I did it to figure out how to break it down and make it more transportable. And that becomes part of the problem solving aspect is not only can I build this, but can I get it out of the room I'm building it in, and can I get it to Chicago or Grand Rapids or wherever I need to take it? That's as much of a challenge as coming up with the build sometimes.
So let's translate that to something that's traditionally considered a girl's job, which is a wedding cake baker. When you bake a wedding cake and it's 4 or 5 tiers, you have to figure out how to break it down and ship it and bring it to the wedding venue. That is the same concept. How am I going to take this 4 or 5 tier cake and transport it? That those problem solving ideas translate across a lot of different scenarios.
Mhm.
It's logistics is logistics is logistics. I don't care if you're making cakes or Lego or transporting, full freight carrier, full freight loads of trucks. Logistics is logistics. And that is one of those things that you're going to learn if you can learn to build with little tiny bricks.
As a history teacher, logistics win wars. We have a whole category we talk about with World War II and the Civil War about how the overlap in just getting things where it needs to go is as much a part of any conflict as that. But there's a history teacher coming out again.
Let's talk about that because that is something that a lot of folks don't remember learning in history. So let's talk about how logistics win wars. Let's just use World War II as an example.
In World War II's case was the fact that our country could produce planes and ships and tanks at a rate where we could just flood any zone with them. Anything the Germans or the Japanese lost, especially late in the war, they could not replace, especially after we started bombing a whole bunch of German factories into dust. But our industrial power, led by women in a lot of cases, Rosie the Riveter and all of her sisters, that were turning out hundreds of airplanes a day and thousands of Jeeps in a month. And all of that just meant that our soldiers always had what they needed to fight. And even if we lost planes, a war of attrition was never going to be won by the Axis in that case. And that's one of the themes when I teach World War II every year, I really bring that out. It was the might of American industry and the American factory worker that just we could always replace what we lost, and we were constantly still developing things in the war. And Japan started the war with these amazing carriers, and that's what they used in Pearl Harbor and Midway. And once they lost four of them at Midway, they couldn't replace them, and they were on the run pretty much after that.
Which is why the kamikazes came into play because they had nothing else that they could do.
And they were out of pilots at that point too, so they just put anyone they could. They bolt them in a cockpit and tell them go over there and do some damage. It was as much about the pilots and the trained personnel as it was about the machines at that point too.
I can't even imagine. So I live in this small town on Lake Michigan called Muskegon, and we have an amazing history museum here. It's a world-class history museum in a very small town. It's really remarkable. So right now they have an exhibit about World War II, about Muskegon during World War II. And this is a very agricultural area. Back during World War II, there was a lot of agriculture, and we built tanks here and parts for submarines. So there's a lot of industry and a lot of agriculture in this area. And so because there's a lot of agriculture, there were a lot of German POWs here. And they would work on the farms, and the German POWs were treated like farm workers. So they would come, they would go work on the farm, they'd sing, they'd have fun. The families who owned the farms would feed them, and then they'd go back to prison or wherever they were being kept. And one of the things that one of the German soldiers said in the exhibit was that when he saw the might of America and everything that we had here, he knew that Germany didn't stand a chance. We just had so much wealth here that there was no way that any of them could compare. Now, it has been, how many years has it been? 80 years? It's been 80
Yeah, about
years.
80 years. Yeah.
So Europe has caught up. We don't have that
Yes.
advantage anymore.
We do not innovate the way we used to as well. We had a great period of innovation in the Cold War, 50s, 60s, 70s, and we lost our way in that quite a bit. We do not innovate or create anywhere near the way we used to. We've been passed up by Europe in a lot of ways, for sure, in that regard.
Yeah, that is, and I know that started during the 80s where we allowed the innovation to leave because we became greedy. We only wanted the money. We didn't want to create anymore. And so now we have this creator economy, and people who make TikTok videos call themselves creators. But really, is that
Yeah,
creating?
no,
Is
we've
it?
shipped
I
all
mean,
the
you're a TikToker.
I mean, where I live, I'm in Rockford, Illinois area, born and raised there. We were probably on the target list during the Cold War for Russian nuclear strikes because we actually created things in Rockford, tool and die industry and aerospace components. All of that has left in the 80s. And we are a service economy now. We're kind of a bedroom community for Chicago. People drive into the suburbs to go work at accounting firms and things like that. And the other people that live in town run the restaurants and stores and the other stuff. And we have very little industry anymore. And people are starting to try to bring it back, but it's been a story here. And I'm sure a lot of Michigan kind of went the same way.
Oh, yeah. I've driven through Rockford. It's a very sleepy suburb. It's when the traffic starts to ease up. So
Did. We
talk to
did.
me a little bit about this. Is usually a podcast for solopreneurs, business owners, and you're not any of those, but you've become a creator on TikTok. So that is a side hustle. Even if you're not making money at it, it is a side
hmm
hustle. So how do you balance doing that little side gig with your career as a teacher?
It's
And do your
just
students know about it?
I try not to advertise. Some of them once in a while will trip over my social media. I will not follow students back. If they follow me, I might notice. After they're no longer my student, I will be more free in saying, "Hey, if you want to go look." I mean, my username Lego in history is not that difficult to figure out. So sometimes they'll trip over it and people know about it. But I keep it kind of compartmentalized. I don't think anything I've ever said is going to get me in trouble with my place of employment, but you never can tell in this day and age. So I don't really worry too much about that. As far as the side hustle angle of it, well, short story long here. I was out of Lego for a long time. I had lost my collection at some point, and right before COVID, my son and I went to our first Lego convention in Milwaukee. And when we got back, I kind of got the bug. I'm gonna see what I can build. I'm gonna get some bricks and see what happens. Well, very soon after that, COVID came, and in that process, where everyone's locked in their house, I started buying big eBay lots full of Lego brick. And then I discovered this wonderful online marketplace called Bricklink where you can buy and sell pieces that you're interested in. So I still do that, and that's kind of the entrepreneur side hustle end of it. Is I buy collections or eBay lots. I sort through. I keep what I want that I'm going to build with. I find interesting pieces like train pieces. I don't build Lego trains, but there's a lot of people that do. So if I find those pieces, I list them on my online store, and it doesn't take long before someone is going to be reunited with the piece that they really want that I don't really care about as much. And I really enjoy that end of it, getting people the things they want. And some orders I'll sell two really tiny pieces and someone's willing to pay the shipping for it, they're more than welcome to it. And sometimes it'll be a big box of stuff people are looking for. And then the content creation just kind of happened naturally. I started posting about my builds. I started posting about things I'd find online or little sets I was putting together, or when I do like not stop motion, but fast animation of when I'm building stuff once in a while, reviews, set reviews, things like that. And then once in a while, I'd post something from my classroom. And I've tried to be more intentional in that recently, as far as this is what we're talking about right now. And especially after I had that video about teaching about the Tuskegee Airmen and Black Wall Street kind of blew up. I've started being a little more intentional in things I post about education as well, and trying to marry those two sides a little bit. I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, it does. But you are a solopreneur because you are buying and selling Lego. So
yes,
you do have a business. And
yes, indeed.
you might, yeah. So it's, I mean, even buying and selling Lego is as a business, it still is something that you have to maintain and you have to pay attention to, even if it's fun,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Not everybody's side hustle is fun. Some of us have side hustles that aren't so fun. So you
Right.
manage to marry the thing that you love with a little bit of money, and
Yeah.
you get to make great content. Okay, so when you make your videos, are you like creating Lego and then talking about history?
I have not found as much way to marry the two of those as maybe I'd like. And maybe if I was more into the ships and the castle builds, that would lend itself a little more to it. But I tend to stay in the realm of sci-fi and fantasy. That's what I grew up building, and that's really kind of where my hobby interest lies a little bit. They're great creators that really get into architecture, and they'll do Frank Lloyd Wright builds and things like that. And I envy their skill. And I've thought sometimes that might be an avenue I could explore at some point, is to build the large buildings or really take care of the architecture side of it. The closest I've gotten is I built a gigantic Egyptian-looking temple that got turned into a nightclub, basically, is the last build I've taken to conventions. So kind of marrying some history with some sci-fi, I guess, in that way.
I want to I'm a marketer. My brain is already always thinking about marketing. I'm just going to give you an idea. There is a guy on Instagram, and I can't remember what his name is, but I get his videos all the time, and he's cooking. He's cooking in the video, but he's
Hmm.
talking about politics. So while he is cooking, he's talking about politics. So it really doesn't matter what you're building while you're talking. You can give history lessons while you're building anything.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
he just he's talking while he's cooking, so it's not a voiceover, it's an actual, he's
Hmm.
cooking, chopping onions and stuff, and he's talking about politics. So you could do that with Lego and history, and that
That may
would
be
work
a
really well.
might be a level of multitasking I'm not quite prepared for, but that is an interesting idea for sure.
Then do voiceovers. But I swear you would blow up. You will blow up if you do that. It does, because it really doesn't matter what you're building. They're there for the history lesson. right?
Yeah.
So anyway, okay. So I can't ever stop being a marketer, right? I always have to be thinking about ways to market. So we touched briefly on this before, but I really want to dig deeper into this. What role has Lego played in bringing your family together, and what lessons might entrepreneurs take from that sense of collaboration and creativity?
It's just a At its base, it's just a hobby we share. At some point, my wife discovered she liked the Harry Potter Lego sets, and they're all in her office. She's got a massive display, and her backlog of sets she hasn't built is getting quite impressive. Not as impressive as mine, but it's really something. On a couple years past, New Year's Day becomes Lego building day, where everyone's got a set, and we are either around the dining room table, or my wife might be in the living room at a table, and my son and I are in one place, my daughter's on there, and we have had Lego building marathons on New Year's Day several times. It just kind of becomes a family bonding and just kind of having fun all together with that. And I think sometimes just the looking at the Lego catalog and what sets are we going to get next, as it just kind of becomes an interesting thing. And it is slowly expanded. Like the room I'm in is pink, right? I don't know if you can tell. It is my daughter's old room because the Lego during COVID began to take over the rest of the house. And my wife at one point asked me, how long is this going to live in the living room? And I said, maybe we got a couple bedrooms downstairs I could think about. So I haven't gotten around to repainting it yet. It's kind of soothing in a way. There's pink carpeting and pink walls and lots of Lego lying around here. So it is kind of a happy place. And I think maybe that's part of it. It's just Lego kind of adds to our happy place vibe in our home. If you look around, you don't have to look far and you'll find Lego sets in our home on shelves and stuck in alcoves and whole rooms full of it. It just is something we do together and talk about, I guess, more. And it's a bonding activity more than anything.
One of the things that I would do when my child was young that I don't do anymore is every Christmas we'd all get a new Lego set. And then we after we are done opening presents and cleaning up and eating breakfast, we would all sit down with our Legos. And my husband, we one kid, so there's three of us. We'd sit down with our
Hmm.
new Lego kit and we would build our new Legos. And I stopped doing that. And I think I need to bring it back because, it's a couple hours of fun
Hmm.
where we're together. However, my family is really, and again, there's only three of us, and my daughter is 26, so it's, um, I don't know how much longer this is gonna last. It'll be as long as she wants to live with us, right? But we play card games almost every night, and we have this new game that we're playing. It's called Star Realms, but it's a lot of fun. And we're competitive, and the game could last for 20 minutes, or the game could last for 2 hours. It's a fun way to spend time together as a family that is not watching TV. We don't have the TV on. We're talking to each other. We're playing the game. Now, granted, the talking that we're doing while we're playing is competitive talk and you know smack talk, because you have to smack talk each other when you play games like that, or they're competitive. But
Of course.
which is, I think that just and also when you're collaborating together as a family like that, it teaches you how to collaborate in the classroom and collaborate at work and every other place. So you're teaching your kids how to get along with other people.
Hmm. I I really like I really like breaking out the Lego in the classroom, even if I can't use it in instruction. And I teach in a school district where um, we have a lot of kids and families living at or around the poverty line or below. And they might not have Lego's an expensive hobby and it's an expensive toy. So a lot of these kids haven't even been exposed to it in their life. And just to see 4 or 5 kids dig into a big bin of Lego and see what they can build out of it and start comparing things, as long as they aren't building guns, which I had a class do once, and that was not the idea behind it. But generally, it's cars and boats, fun things like that. Just appreciating that, seeing that creativity, that spark of creativity once in a while. That's kind of a reminder of how we all get into the hobby, I guess. I kind of
So
take for granted.
let's talk about how to make Lego affordable for families that can't afford because a kit could cost you $50 or more. I mean, some of them are
More,
really, really expensive. But there is a comic book shop. It's huge. I wouldn't even call it a comic book shop. It's a huge store that sells a lot of different toys and stuff. But they sell Hot Wheels cars that are really vintage, old, just this bucket of them, and you can go through the bucket and buy the Hot Wheels cars. Well, they do the same thing with Lego. So you could just go and get a scoop and scoop a couple pounds of Lego and take them home.
The eBay lots, I would order pounds of Lego, and so that's a entry level to the hobby. If you just want to go on eBay and find a random lot of bricks and parts that you can get in for a reasonable price, and then just start the creative process, and then figure out, either what you want to collect or what you would like to do from there. That can be a much more budget friendly way to get into the hobby, rather than buy a set that sometimes it's difficult to build other things with, because it's so specialized. Everything is so technical and technicky with all the pins and the connectors and things like that, that sometimes just you don't want to take what you built apart because it's so intricate when you get it together. And it's not like the houses or the blocky spaceships that we had when we were kids. So I think that can be a barrier to it as well. So just getting old bricks off eBay can be a way in. And there are a lot of other companies that do some more budget-friendly alternatives, and the quality has gone way up. It used to be some of those were not very good. The marketplace is what it is, and some of those companies, there's a company called Funhole that sells whole buildings and the lights with them for very, very reasonable price. I know a lot of my builder friends have really kind of taken off with those kind of sets.
Are they interchangeable?
They are scaled the same. They will fit together for the most part, I believe. Yeah, because everyone kind of wants to glom onto it. So a lot of even the fake Lego companies, they're all interconnected, connectable in some way. Some better than others, but Lego's quality control is the big thing.
I imagine that the patent has run out on the actual shape of the brick.
The shape, yes, I think it has to do with Lego's tolerances and their quality control.
Okay.
The ability of a Lego brick to hold itself to another brick that doesn't go away. That part is so well made that even 30, 40, 50 years down the road, those bricks still grab like they did when you first got them. Like anything in the system will connect to itself. And when I used to, my brother used to get like the Tyco bricks, and they were never quite as good. The bricks would be kind of slippy; they'd slip off of each other. So I think that's where Lego had the advantage, and I don't know, maybe there's some catching up now with that.
Yeah. What I know is that those two wooden cases of Lego that we had when I was a kid, I am pretty sure that my niece's sons now have those bricks and they still play with them. So Lego, really good quality. They last forever. I mean, I'm 55 years old, so those bricks have to be 55 because
Hmm.
I'm sure that
Hmm.
my father bought them for my sister when she was a kid and that we just grew into them. So yeah, really good quality. Okay, so what is your advice for a parent or a teacher who wants to introduce the concept of building to their girl students using Lego or anything, trying to get girls into STEM? What's your advice?
I would say just one of the basic boxes. Lego does sell, like, I guess, starter kits. Just be a box with multicolored bricks and wheels and all sorts of funny pieces. It doesn't build anything specific, but definitely just put that down in front of kids and let them start building things. Let them be creative. And then for the STEM aspect of it, Lego has done their Mindstorms and there's a whole Lego robotics league. My son does Robot League, and one of the sub leagues actually builds their robots out of Lego, and they get coding help and module help. It's like a stepping stone between the real advanced engineering of an actual robotics team. So that would be and my son's got girls and boys on his robotics team, and they all participate and build and have a great time doing it. And I know some of them started with Lego League.
I wish that we had Robot Wars when I was in high school because I totally would have been on the team. My dad actually volunteered for First Robotics when he worked. He worked for the Department of the Army. He volunteered with the locals First Robotics team. And so I would go to the competitions and I was like, man, I wish that we had this when I was in high school.
That's what my son's involved with, is his first robotics.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's not as bad as Robot Wars because Robot Wars is pretty violent, but it's still, can we build a robot that will do this?
And that's what he's only been doing it for a couple of years, but just that they give them a problem in January. They tell them, this is what your robot has to do, and you have to go off and figure out how to make it do that. And then over the course of the competition season, you watch the game evolve, that people figure out different ways to not only solve the problem, but to maximize their scoring. Like scoring at the world competition was much different than some of the lower level competitions we saw. So that part of the creativity and the engineering of it is really kind of fascinating to me. And I do love a good robot wars where they're beating the heck out of each other, but I really appreciate the craft that goes into some of these robots and the different ways that the different teams try to solve the problem. They ground intake, or they have arms, or there's 100 different things they can do with those robots to all get to the same place.
And it's not just for boys. Girls can
Correct,
build
Amundo.
too. And it comes back to this problem solving. They're given this problem and they have to come up with a solution, and there might be 50 teams competing, and they come at the solution 50 different ways. And some of the ways that they come at it work really well and some of them don't, but they all figure it out. So there's no one way to solve. There's no one way to do anything. You got one problem, 50 solutions.
As a teacher, I am constantly so here's a parallel. I do notice that a lot of students these days don't want to or cannot figure out how to problem solve. They want to be told what the end result is, and they don't want to go through any trial, tribulation, pain, discovery, or being wrong in order to get there. So constantly trying, and maybe that's the computer, the Google age, where you can just go find the answer instead of having to do any work for it. Whereas you and I probably come from the age of card catalogs and microfiche, where we have to go find things in a library and actually do research. Even
And
just
actually read the microfiche.
yeah, trying to get my students to uh, even give me a "I think because" kind of statement becomes something I ask them to do all the time. Also building empathy. How do you think you would feel if you were there, and why? That is a big step that I have a real difficulty trying to get middle schoolers to accomplish, and I think that might be society as a whole, and that might be the problem-solving aspect of it. Like, solving problems is tough, and we maybe don't give enough room to be able to solve those problems these days. We don't have the entry level skills to be able to attack problems like that in any meaningful way. And that goes for a lot of things, probably.
A couple of weeks ago, I interviewed a cult survivor, and she said that the way to leave a cult, the way to overcome being in a cult, overcome cultish behavior is curiosity.
Mm,
Curiosity
yeah.
leads to problem solving. So teaching our kids to be curious is
Yeah.
important.
That's a huge thing. We're always trying to build inquiry skills. That's a big focus of our history skills, and learning how to ask good questions. And they don't have any idea how to ask a good question in order to lead to any kind of research or lead to any kind of discovering answers. They don't even know where to start with some of that. And so that's a focus of what we're supposed to do. And we're just we can't get off the ground on a lot of it. Yeah, absolutely.
I think learning history is one of the most important things that we do when we're in school. And so I thank you and appreciate that that's what you do, that you teach kids.
I really try.
I mean, there is so much. I mean, I'd never even heard of Black Wall Street until the last 5 or 6 years.
Hmm.
And I'm from a progressive area I'm from California, a
Right.
very progressive, forward-thinking area, and I didn't know about Black Wall Street until the last 5 years.
I didn't either. And as a history teacher, I learned about it several years back, probably. I didn't know about a lot of that stuff in history. And then I'll post something online and somebody says, well, I learned all that when I was going to school in the South. And I really challenge that because I don't think anyone was really teaching about Black Wall Street or the Tuskegee experiments or Stonewall or anything like that when we were in school. I mean, I got
Yeah.
a pretty progressive education for the time, probably, but there were just things that you didn't talk about, you didn't even hear about. And so with that stuff coming to light and being taught more openly today, of course, now there's the pushback against anything like that because that might make somebody feel bad about something that happened in the past.
It's not your fault that it happened, but it is your fault if you don't accept it and you don't wanna learn about it.
We just opened up a whole another podcast
I
here with
know. So I
teaching
know we
history.
we we did open up a whole nother can of worms. I just wanted to share that my Jarvis Ed teacher, Mr. Sugimoto, when I was in high school, had actually been in an internment camp during World War II when he was a small child.
My wife's family are Japanese Americans. Her aunt was born in a camp. So
Yeah.
there's no bones about it made in our family. They're called concentration camps. That's exactly what they were. The machine guns pointed in, not out. That was what it was all about. And that's another thing I don't think I learned too much about when I was in school. But
But the advantage was that because Mr. Sugimoto was a teacher at the school, we learned it. We learned it. And there are a lot of people my age that didn't learn it, but we did. And
mhm.
that's how you make sure stuff like that doesn't happen again, is if you learn it. So we need to talk about those things that we don't ever want to happen again. I mean,
History doesn't always repeat itself, but it often rhymes. That's one of my favorite sayings. And especially right now, there's a lot of rhyming going on.
I have never heard that expression before, but now I'm going to be repeating it often. History doesn't often repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Hmm.
It's a good expression. All right. Well, it is time to wrap up. This is your moment of gratitude. Eric Archer, what's one Lego related moment in your life that you're deeply grateful for?
My grandmother, every Christmas I'd get a Lego set from my grandmother and perpetuated that for many, many years. I think that was my entry level to it. I guess maybe I'm most grateful for that she saw that at an early age and cultivated that. And here it has come all the way back around. Like I said, I left the hobby for a long time, but coming back, and I can trace that all back to my grandmother for sure.
Thanks for tuning in to Gratitude Geek, the podcast for female solopreneurs over 40, building genuine, lasting connections with clients, colleagues, and community. Our theme music is by Rev Brock and Soul Lily. Be sure to check the show notes for all the links that we've talked about today. This is episode 289. I've been your host, Kandas Rodarte. Stay groovy, my friends.
Stay groovy, my friends.